Hello there, people of the internet. I'm out here with a couple of different rifles. I've got myself my M44 Mosin Nagant, jammered in 7.62 by 54 rimmed, and I've also got myself a sporterized BRNO Czech Mauser, an 8mm Mauser. And whenever I was out here messing around with these things, I kind of pieced together that I really have like opposite ends of a spectrum going on here. Like these two firearms, these two rifles have gone, well, not necessarily this one and that one, but the Mosin and the Mauser have gone like head to head with one another on the battlefield on numerous fronts at numerous points in time in numerous world wars. Like it's a significant distinction, and I'm out here with both of these rifles. Well, while I'm out here, I was kind of pondering to myself, what are the benefits of the Mosin and what are the benefits of the Mauser? And of course, I hear people talking about it in the comments all the time. Everyone loves to talk about what the benefits of their particular bolt-action military surplus rifle is in comparison to some other bolt-action military surplus rifle. And as someone who shoots these things regularly, I can tell you right now that the distinction in terms of a difference between the firearms are absolutely minimal. If we have a Mosin and we have a Mauser, they're both 5-shot bolt-action rifles, and they both have, if we're talking about like standard stock configuration, I know that one's been sporterized, but they both have iron sights, and some of them have like scopes on them. Of course, if you want to do an aftermarket scope, you can do that, but the scopes from the time era where these rifles were being used were really not that great, and they were absolutely comparable with one another. The differences between the Mosin and the Mauser are extremely minimal. The Mosin has 2 locking lugs. The Mauser 98 action has 2 locking lugs. Of course, it does have a safety lug on it, which is not indicative of a locking system at all. But the Mauser also the Mosin also has a safety system. See this massive bar of metal pressed onto the receiver right here? That right there is your safety lug. It's significantly larger than the little safety lug that the Mauser has. Of course, if we're talking earlier variations of the Mauser, then there's other things that we could talk about, but I guess we're going to talk about the Mauser 98 because that's what I have out here. But even the earlier versions of the Mauser, they're all 5-shot bolt-action rifles that fire essentially a full-powered cartridge. Now, granted, the cartridges themselves, I will say that there are some differences between them. And this right here is a 30 caliber cartridge. That's an 8mm, a 7.92 diameter cartridge. So the main differences between the cartridges is that on average, for the most part, your 8mm Mauser ammo is going to be a 198 grain, and your Mosin ammo is going to be a 147 grain. If we want to compare light ball to light ball, your light ball for Mauser is a 155 grain, so it's still going to be heavier than your Mosin. The Mosin 148 grain from a full-length Mosin barrel is going to be traveling approximately 2,800 or so feet per second, versus your Mauser 155 grain, which is going to go about 3,000 feet per second, or rather it's supposed to. So the Mauser is the more powerful cartridge, but not by much. That 200 feet per second really is not going to make all that much of a difference, considering what it is that people use these rifles for, especially nowadays. Now, if we were talking, way back in the day when these rifles were being used, and we were talking like anti-vehicle cartridges, like what would be best from a belt-fed light machine gun to take out a vehicle, then that's a whole other story. But in a modern day context, that 200 feet per second from these old school military surplus Mausers is not going to make much of a difference, especially because people are using these rifles as like hunting rifles or survival rifles or backup rifles or something like that. It's just not going to matter much. Now, you are, like I said, most likely to find heavier projectiles with the 8mm Mauser and lighter projectiles with 7.62 by 54 rimmed. So that is one distinction, but it is not a set in stone distinction, because I can find heavier 7.62 by 54 rimmed, and I can find lighter 8mm Mauser if I look around for it. 7.62 by 54 rimmed, the surplus that is out there is well, it's very numerous because it's still being used and made to this day, versus the surplus for 8mm Mauser, which is at this point like 80 plus years old. So that is another distinction. Ammo for these rifles, the Mosin, are still being made, but the effectiveness, that plane's up there chasing a bird, looks like. Nice, a huge ass bird. But the distinction between the rifles and their capabilities in a modern day context is so absolutely minimal in comparison to what we have modern day. Like, I don't care if you're going to argue Mosin or Mauser. I don't care which you say is better. Neither would be better than, say, an AR-15 or an AR-10 or an AK-47, or insert your choice of self-loading rifle here. It doesn't matter how hard you train with your rifle or how effective you are with your bolt action, somebody with even a little bit of practice on a self-loading rifle would probably be able to run circles around you. Now, I do want to say, I'm sure some people are going to point out like the Lee Enfield series of rifles, 10-shot, 303 British, or even the Ishapur 2A1 rifles, which are actually chambered in 7.62 NATO. Excellent, excellent rifles, and great for the idea of them, but even in a modern day context, something like that still kind of pales in comparison to a self-loading modern modular rifle. This right here is just yesterday's technology. I mean, they're still cool, they still work, they'll still get you places, but let's think about like the fuel economy and speed and efficiency of like a Model T. You can still get where you want to go in a Model T to this day, but man, we have things out there that just do that same job so much better. Okay, this right here is gonna shake my teeth in my skull. Oh God, that really did shake the teeth in my skull, but I did hit my steel target. Okay, I think I still barely kind of sort of a little bit see my steel target sticking up over there. It's not on anything, I just kind of have it leaned up against something out there. Okay, I have no idea if I actually hit it that time. The concussive blast that comes out of this rifle is gnarly, but insert your choice of Mosin. Doesn't have to be a short length M44 or M38 or something like that. Just pick your poison with your Mosin. Pick your poison with your Mauser as well. They're both 5-shot bolt action rifles. They both run at relatively the same speeds. The ammunition is relatively the same. The effectiveness is relatively the same, especially if we compare it to modern day sort of setups and situations. So now I got my Mauser. This is 155 Turkish ammo, and it ought to be quite spicy. Aha. And this sporterized Mauser is quite a deal more lightweight than that Mosin that I have there. So definitely more recoil behind it. What else am I going for? I see a thing right there. I have no idea what's going to happen whenever I shoot it though. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing happened. But there we go. 2 shots from the Mosin, 2 shots from the Mauser. Bolt action rifles, you got to cycle it every time you want to fire. Like, they're just on par with one another. It's not like if I was going to compare, I mean, let's say an AR-15 and an AR-10. Those are 2 dramatically different platforms, despite the fact they're basically the same platform. As a matter of fact, that might make for a fun video. But they just fire 2 dramatically different cartridges and have a dramatically different setup. Typically with an AR-15, like if you were talking about 223 5.56, normally with that rifle you would touch out for the average person, touch out to 500 yards or in, versus something like an AR-10, let's say in 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor, or pick your poison with whatever it is you want it chambered in, where you could touch out to farther distances and put more energy on target depending on what your target is, etc., etc. The AR-15 is more of an anti-personnel thing, and the AR-10 is more like a DMR / sniper role, if you could push it into that role, / anti-material firearm. They just have dramatically different roles versus something like the Mosin and the Mauser. Same role, same effectiveness, same everything. The cartridges really aren't even all that different. Now, if I was going to compare the Mosin to like a 7mm Mauser, then we might start to get into more discrepancy. But if we're comparing 7.62 by 54 rimmed to 8mm Mauser, it's not there. The differences between the two rifles just don't matter all that much. That's my 2 cents on the subject. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my rambling. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you all in the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.